Welcome back to another project. In this project, we are going to create an image search app. As you can see from the final version of the project, we have an input here with a search button. We can search for the images that we want. For example, I search for cat. When I press enter, this is going to show me the images related to cat. As you can see, all of them, they have description. And if we click on here, this is going to open the image inside the unsplash.com, so you can download this image and see more data from that. And also we have a show more button here at the bottom. So when we click on this button, this is going to fetch more image each time. So up to 1,000 times, you can click on this show more button and get more images. So all the images are unique and you never get a repetitive image. And also the page is completely responsive. You can see that we have 2 columns in the tablet size. In the mobile size, we have 1 column and they are on top of each other. The input and the search button are on top of each other. We have 2 and then we have 3 in the bigger size. And so we're going to learn how to work with the Unsplash API, and we get the data based on the search that we do here. So it can be anything. For example, you can search dog as well. So, and it's very fast website. As you can see, the results are instant. And we're going to use a modern design using CSS. In the next section, we're going to start creating the HTML part of the project. So see you in the next section. All right, let's start our project. As you can see, I have put the final version here for our comparison and compare our website with the final version. And also I'm going to show you a preview of the website as well. The first things we need to do is to create an HTML file to start with. And we create the HTML tags. And later in the following sections, we're going to work on the CSS and JavaScript parts of the project. So let's open the Visual Studio Code. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code, but you're free to use any text editor that you're familiar with. We can close the Welcome tab, and inside the File menu, we can open the folder, and here we can create a new folder and start working on the project. I would like to create the project in my desktop, so I go to my desktop and create a new folder. And I set the name of the folder to be the name of our project, which is image search app. Image search app. And as you have created the folder, you can click on the select folder. This is going to open the folder inside the Visual Studio Code. As you can see here, the folder is open. It is completely empty, but we can create our files now. Let's close the Welcome tab again, and here we click on this icon to create a new file, and we just call the file index.html, and we press enter. It is completely empty, but we can use an exclamation mark to create a boilerplate for our projects. So you just need to write down an exclamation mark. The image abbreviation is going to suggest you some boilerplate. So now we have our boilerplate, which includes the doc type, which is HTML, and HTML stands for HTML5 actually. In HTML5, we just write down HTML inside the doc type, which shows the browser which version of HTML we are using. The next tag is the HTML tag, which covers both of the head and the body section. The lang attribute here sets the language of the page, and as we're creating a page in English, we just write down EN here. After that, we have a head tag, which covers the metadata tag and also the title tag. The first metadata tag sets the chart set attribute, and UTF-8 is recommended by HTML5, because it is almost covers all the syntaxes, all the characters and symbols that you can see inside the browser. So the users won't have any problem seeing our website because we are using UTF-8. The next metadata tag tells the Internet Explorer browser to use the most recent rendering engine, which is Microsoft Edge. So this is just for my users from the Internet Explorer. The next one is just a viewport metadata tag, which sets the width of the screen to device's width. For example, if we have a mobile screen, the width of the screen would be smaller than we are using the tablet screen. So the users won't have any problem in any devices. And then we have the initial zoom level of the browser, which is set to be 100%. Finally, we see the title of the website, which is now document. Let's open the browser and we can see the title. If you have installed the live server extension, you can see this icon here at the bottom of the Visual Studio Code. You can simply click on that and this is going to open the live server, which is going to create a server for us on port 5500. And as you can see, the title is document, but we can simply change the title here. For example, I just say image search app. So now if you check the browser, the title is image search app. So what we want to do here, we want to create a website like this. So I'm going to break down the website. So what we have here is an h1 tag saying image search app at the top. Then we have a form, which includes an input and also a button. So we need to add the h1 tag, a form. Inside the form, we have input and button. Then we have a div, which is covering all the results, and the result is going to be a bunch of images. And each image, at the bottom of the image, we're going to have an anchor tag explaining the image. And when we click on this anchor tag, it's going to open the image inside the Unsplash website in a full size, so you can just download and do kind of these things. So we're gonna add, so each image here includes the kind of text and also a link. And finally, after that, we have a button here saying show more, which when we click, we're gonna see more results. Okay, this is going to fetch more data. So now let's create this one and see it inside our website. I'm gonna bring the website, the browser on the right side and our Visual Studio Code on the left side, so you can see the changes in real time. Let's close this part so we can have more space. So inside the body section, we're going to start with the h1 tag. So we're going to have an h1 tag saying the title of the website, which is image search app. So we can see it here. And after the h1 tag, we are going to have more things. So let's just disable this extension. So after the h1 tag, we're going to have a form. And we don't need action for this form. And inside the form, we're going to have an input, which is going to have the type of text. And also, this input is going to have an ID of search input, because we need this ID to track the changes inside the JavaScript. And also, I think you're going to see it now. Let's refresh the page. Now you can see the input here. For the placeholder, we're going to show a text when the input is empty. So we're going to add a placeholder. And this placeholder is going to say search for images, ... like this. After the input, we're going to have a button. And for the button, I'm going to add an ID. We can do it by £. We just say search dash button. And this is going to say search. Okay, looks fine. And after the form, we're going to see the search results. So as I mentioned before, we have a div here that is covering all the images. It's covering all the images, and each image has its own div as well, which includes the image and the explanation of the image. So we're going to have a div here. So let's create a div with a class of search results. So we just write down dot dash results. This is going to create a div for us with the search result. This is just an empty div. And after that, inside this one, we're going to have another div, but this time, instead of saying search results, we want to say search results singular. So we just say search or you can call it anything, for example, card or anything similar to this one. As long as you understand what is that, it's fine. So this is a singular search result. And inside this div, we're going to have the image and the anchor tag. So the image, for now, we're going to just get some random image from unsplash.com, but later we're going to just change the source of it based on the search result. But for now, we just want to make some images because we need to have something here to style it using CSS in the next section. So I'm going to go to unsplash.com. For example, we can get this image by just, so you can search any image here in the search. For example, you can search for nature, and this just bring you some images. I just choose, for example, the first image. You just right click and click on copy image address and just paste it inside the source. And for alternative, we just say image for now. So let's see what happens. So we have this image, and then this is huge, but we're gonna style it using CSS. So after the image, we're going to have that anchor tag, which is going to open it in another page. So we're gonna change the target to blank. So the target is going to blank. When they use the target blank, this is going to open. When you click on the link, it is going to open it in another page. So for example, for this image, if you go inside this image, it has a URL. You can copy the URL and paste it inside the anchor tag, for example. And you just add a text inside the anchor tag. For example, we just write down the explanation of this, which is, I think it's gonna available somewhere. Let me open this. Doesn't have any explanation. So we just write down something here. For example, we just say an image of a beach. And inside our website, we see the anchor tag here at the bottom. So I don't know if you can see it or not. Here at the bottom, you see an image of a beach. When we click on it, this is going to open this page in a different, in a new tab. So this is going to keep our website because we are using the target blank, and we just set the relationship, no opener, no referrer. So this is for search engine optimization. You just different types of click you set. So we have this image. As I want to style it here using CSS, so we're gonna have at least 3 images. So when in different sizes, we see different number of images. As you can see, for example, in a mobile size, you see 1, and then we just see 2, and then 3. So I'm gonna at least have 3 images. The things we can do, we can just copy this search result div. For example, 2 more times using Alt Shift arrow down. 1, 2. So inside our website, we're going to have 1, 2, 3 image, but we can just change the images as well, but it's not necessary because this is just a temporary hard-coded images. In the JavaScript part, we're going to show the images based on our image search. Okay. So that was it for the, oh, sorry, it's not completed yet. We need to add this show more button too. So after this, we're going to go outside the div, and we just go and create a button. This one is going to have an ID of show more button. So we can target it easily using JavaScript or CSS. And then we just say show more. That's it. So probably we can see it in our website, but just here at the bottom. So just bear with me. In the next section, we are going to use CSS, and we're going to make our websites like the one in the final version, make it more beautiful and with the modern design. So see you in the next section for the HTML, for the CSS part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the HTML part of the project. In this section, we're going to style the project using CSS. The first thing we need to do is to create a CSS file inside our Visual Studio Code. Let me increase the size, and we just open the Explorer section using Ctrl-Shift-E, or you can just go to the view and click on Explorer, and here we're going to create another file, and we just call it a style.css, and we need to add a link to this file within the HTML file in order to use it. So inside the HTML file, after the title tag, we're going to add a link tag. We just write down link and we click on the third auto suggestion, the one with the CSS. And here we're going to create a relationship between the HTML file and the CSS style sheet. And the destination of the file, the href, is style.css because both files are located at the same directory. So now we can use the CSS in our file inside our website. So the first things I want to add, and the style is the body section. I just want to change the background color, font family, font size, and line height. So I'm going to add, we just write down body, and we open a set of curly braces, and we're going to target the body, which is the whole website. I just want to change the background color to be a light gray, and the hashtag code, the pound code for that one is F9, F9, F9. So let's see it inside the website. So now the background color is different. Let's bring the website to the right side so we can see the changes in real time. I'm going to use the start and arrow right and left to create these kind of windows inside the windows. So for those who wants to know how I bring this one to the right side. After the background color, I want to change the font family. I want to change the family, the font family of the text inside the body to be Arial. So we're going to choose the Arial, and if the Arial is not available, we're going to use these two fonts. And the next things I want to do, we want to set the line height to be 1.6, which is going to add some space between them. And also we want to remove the default margin, and we set it to be 0, so we don't have any space between the elements and the browser's wall. So after the body section, we're going to style this h1 tag. So inside the HTML, we see that inside the body that we have now styled, then we have an h1 tag saying image search app. So here we can target that one by just targeting the h1 tag. We're going to open the set of curly braces, and here we just, for example, I changed the font size to be, for example, 36 pixels. Okay. And after that, we're going to bring it to this, so we want to make it bold. So I just want to change the font weight to be bold, which is going to make it thick. And let's bring it to the center using text align center. So bring it to the center like this. It's very simple to do it. And then we can add some margin at the top, some space at the top. So bring it a little bit down using, you just say 40 pixels. So, all right. So that's enough space, and we can add some space at the bottom as well. We just say margin bottom of 60 pixels. Okay. So that's enough for the h1 tag. After that, we're going to target the form. So the form actually doesn't have any ID or class. You can add it, but you can simply target the form here. We just say form because it's just a tag. We just say form, and we open a set of curly braces. What I want to do is I want to change the display to flex. So these items, we can center them easily. When you make a display flex, everything comes next to each other. So let's see what we have. So this is kind of look messy now, but let's just change the justify content center to bring everything to the center horizontally, and align items center to bring everything to the center vertically. Probably now we can see the button here. So I feel we actually put the HTML tag in a wrong order. So this div it should be outside the form, not inside the form. So this div with the class of search result, we're gonna cut this one and put it outside the form. And actually, this button, the show more button, should be outside the form too. So I made a mistake here. Sorry about that. So after that, after this div, we're going to add the button. So the form, we have the form here. After that, we have a div with this class of search result. After that, we have the button with the ID of show more button. So this way you can see the input and the button at the top, and then you see the images, and finally you see the button. So you just fix this one, and then you can get the same result for the styling. So let's continue styling now. So after this, adding the justify content and align items center to bring everything to the center, we want to add some margin at the bottom of 60% or 60 pixels. So we're going to add some space, and after that we're going to target this input and the search input and the search button. So in the HTML, this one has so this one should be search input, actually, not search ID. So I'm going to fix this one too. So the first input has the ID of search input, and the button has the ID of search button. So we can target them because they have an ID. We can add the pound sign here, and then we just say search input, and then we're going to open a set of curly braces. I want to set the width of this one to be 60%. So it's going to be longer, and we just set the maximum width to be 400 pixel. This is going to limit it when we have a bigger screen, like 400 pixel. And let's continue. Let's add some padding. I want to add a padding 10 pixel up and bottom. So we just say 10 pixels here for up and bottom, and 20 pixels for left and right. And this is going to make it a little bigger. Let's remove the border. So we want to have a modern design. Modern design doesn't have border usually. So we just set the border to be none. But instead, we're going to have box shadow, which is cooler. So we're going to have a box shadow. We're going to have 0 pixels for the horizontal shadow, 0 pixel for vertical shadow. We have 5 pixels for blurriness. And we can set the color to be RGBA, which stands for red, green, blue, and alpha. And for the red, green, and blue, we're going to set it to be 0, because this one gives us a black color. For the alpha value, I'm going to set it to be 0.2, which is 20% transparency, so you can see the shadow like that now. And then we're going to have a border radius. Border radius is going to create a rounded corner for us, and we set it to be, for example, 5 pixels. That's enough. And finally, we're going to have some, we can set the font size to be 18 pixels. So make it, 18. So make it a little bit bigger. And for the color, I want to have this color, 333, which is kind of light dark, like black. It's like a gray, dark gray. So we have the button, we have the input now ready. Looks okay. So we have just set some width, max width, padding, and border. After that, we're going to target this search button. So I'm going to bring this one at the top. And here we're going to target the search button. As you can see inside the HTML, this button has an ID of search button. So we can just target it using a pound sign. And now we can simply target that button. First, I want to add some padding to it to be similar size of the input we have. 10 pixels for top and bottom, and 20 pixels for left and right. We set the background color to be this color, which is kind of green color, for CA F50. And then we're going to set the color of the text to be white. We're going to remove the border similar to we have done for the input. We just set the border to be none. We remove the border, but we can just change the font size similar to the input. We make it 18 pixels. This is going to make the button exactly the same size of this input. And then we're gonna have some box shadow too. The box shadow should be similar. We're going to create the same 0 for X and Y axis, 5 pixels for blurriness, and also the RGBA, which is going to be black with 20% transparency. And finally, we're going to have the cursor to be pointer. When we hover over it, we see a pointing hand. We want to have some border radius as well. So the border radius, we're going to have 5 pixels here. Okay. And also, we're going to have some hover effect. When we hover over it, we want to change the background color to a different color. So in order to do that, we can just say search dash button. We target the hover by just adding a clone saying hover. And this is going to, we're going to change the background color. For example, we set it to be 3E8E41. Which is a darker green color, but you see the change is very fast. We can add a transition here. We add a transition to the background color. So you can copy this one, don't type it. So we add the transition to the background color for 0.3 seconds with ease in and out effect. So which is going to create kind of this effect. So this is for the button and the input. Now, what we want to do is to style this image, the results section. But before doing that, I want to just decrease the size of the image first because this is kind of big, so we cannot see the changes. So I want to target the image first. The image is inside this div with a class of search result. So we can target that one. We just add the dot for the class, targeting the class. We just say search result, and then we just target all the images inside here, and then we just set the width to be different. So we just set the width to be 100%. So this is going to force the image to be 100%, but we set the height to be 200 pixels, which is make the image looks like this. But as you can see, the image is kind of scratched. In order to prevent this one distorting its aspect ratio, we can just set the object fit to be cover. So this is going to prevent the image to be scratched, but it's okay. We're gonna make the 3 images in columns first. So now the images looks fine, but we're gonna target the div that is covering both of them, the search result, this here. So this one at the top, because it's a class, we just say dot search result, and we're going to target that one. So the things we want to do here, we want to set the display to flex, so bring everything next to each other like this. But we're gonna have a different things. For example, in mobile size, we want to have 1. Tablet, we want to have 2, and in the big screen, we want to have 3. So we're gonna change this width. As you can see, this is 100%. But in the mobile size, it's 100%. In tablet, it's 45%, and it's in the big size, we're going to have 30%. Okay. So we're gonna have a different things here. But first, we just wanna first, I want to check this one is a class, okay? This is class 2. So we have targeted that one. We change the display to flex. We can change the flex wrap to be wrap. So when we have a smaller side, they are going to go on top of each other like this. So based on the size of the screen, we're going to have different number of images inside using flex wrap. And we can just use justify content. We can say a space between to add some space between them. For example, like this, they're not going to connect to each other. And then we can just use a maximum width. So we're going to have a maximum width of 1200 pixels. So in the big screen, we're going to limit it. We just limit it to 1200 pixels. They are not just connected to the wall. And for bringing them to the center, we can just set the margin to 0 for the top and bottom, and auto for the left and right, which is going to bring them exactly in the center. like this. So see in the different size we have. Actually, you can increase that 1200 for more, but I think that is fine for now. Let's keep continue. So we have target the search result. Now we're going to target the search result singular here. So each of them, we're going to style each of them. So I'm going to copy this. After this, we're going to target that. I just put everything in order so you know which one comes first. We just style this image because we want to make them smaller for easier styling. For the search result, as you can see, it's connected to the bottom one. So I'm going to add some margin at the bottom of 60 pixels. So we have some space between them. And then we set the width to be 30%. This 30% is just for the biggest screen like this. We made it 30%. So they're going to cover more spaces. But in the other places like the tablet and mobile size, we're going to have the different width. So this width is 30%. But in the different sizes, I'm going to show you how to do it using media query. So we're going to see a more beautiful design. And then we're going to have some border radius of 5 pixels. So after this, you cannot see the border radius yet because we have to add some box shadow here. So we create a box shadow. The box shadow is going to be 0, 0 for the X and Y axis, 5 pixel for blurriness, and finally we have some RGBA, which is black with 20% transparency. Now you can see it. And we just need to, some of these border radius is under the, if I zoom it, you can see it better. You can see that this image is covering that border radius. So we can just simply use overflow hidden to hide the extra image. Now you can see it like this. So that was it for this one. And also we want to set the height of this one as well to, I think the height is fine for the result section. Yeah, because we have added the height before for the image, so we don't need to have the height here. So the next things I want to add is this. We have just created this result. The image we have styled already, but when we hover over the image, like the final version, I wanted some scale effect. As you can see, when we hover over this container, we see the image zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to target that search result div, its hover effect. And then I just want to add the image, these things. I want to just use transform to change its size. So we just say transform, use the scale, and then we can increase the size of the scale, for example, 5% like this. So you can see the change, but it's very fast change. We need to add some transition. So we can just, inside the image that we have here, we can add some transition, which is going to add some animation. And the transition we want to add is going to be on top of the transform, because we want to just apply the transition to this transform. This is going to be 0.3 second, and with the ease in and out effect. So now you can see it's much better. So after the image, we're going to install this anchor tag here. So we can target that one. We just say search result, and then we apply all the anchor tags. So first thing first, I want to just change its padding, add some padding to it, and I set the padding to be 10 pixels. So we add some space for it. I want to change the display to block, and this is going to, all of them goes inside that. As you can see, they came inside the same column. And after that, you can just change the color. Let me delete this. The color is going to be dark gray, which is 333. And let's remove this underline. So we just make a text decoration. Let me bring this one up. So text decoration is going to be none. Okay. Let's see it inside the big size. It looks okay. We can make it uppercase or something like that. So you can actually work on it, make it your own styling. So for example, for you can just add too many transaction things, transform. I think you can add, okay, that's it. I think that's fine. Let's move on and go to the next part. So when we hover over this container, I want this actually anchor tag has some background color. It became a little bit gray. So when we hover over the search result div like this, so we add some hover. So all the anchor tag inside is going to have a background color of, we can just make a light gray. The simplest way is to create an RGBA. For example, 20%. 20% is a bit high. We can make it 1%. It's a bit lighter. And also we can add some transition too to make it subtle and smooth. So we just add a transition here on top of the background color. So I'm gonna copy this, and we just 0.3 seconds, and with the ease in and out effect. Okay, this is very changes similar to this image, so that's very nice. You can see it in a bigger size. Okay, looks okay, but we just have to, let me remove the zoom level so you can see it's like that. So when we click on here, it's gonna open the image inside the Unsplash. So let's move on and install this button. For the button, if you remember, for the button, we have added an ID of show more button. So I'm going to copy this ID, the name of ID, and we can target that one using a # show more button. And now let's just change the background color to be, I want to set it to be blue. So #008CBA, this color. Let's remove the border by setting the border to be none. And let's change its color to be white. And after that, we're going to add some padding in the X-axis, in the top and bottom to be 10 pixels and 20 pixels for left and right. So as you can see here, we can bring it to the center using text aligned center. Let's see. So we have to change the display to inline block. So now we can see. So yeah, for bring it to the center, probably we don't need actually that one. We can just use margin 0 auto. Let's see why it doesn't work. So we have to say text align center. We bring it to the center. Let's remove this display block. Okay. So text align center. We have set the margin to center the button horizontally, but it didn't work. So let's wait to see. Okay, still it's on the left side. Let's see that we have here the button show more. Okay. Okay, for bring it to the center, we just need to add a display block, which is going to make this one complete in a block or to take all the space. And when you use margin 0 auto, it's going to add the same amount of margin to the left and right. And text align center actually bring this show more in the center of the button. Then we want to add some border radius, which is going to be 5 pixels. It's going to add some corner, rounded corner, and I think we're gonna add some margin at the top and bottom. So we can just set the margin here, top and bottom, 20 pixels. So we're gonna add some space. 40 pixels would be better. Okay, I think 20 is okay. That's fine. And then we can set the cursor to be pointer. So when we hover over it, we see a pointing hand. And finally, we're going to have some hover effect. So when we hover over it, we want to see a different color. So we just target that button again, show more button. But we're going to target its hover effect, which is going to change the background color to be # 007B5. 77B5, so 77. Okay, now this one, when we hover over, we see a different color, and we can add a transition here to have a smooth change So we're going to have a transition on background color with 0.3 second and ease in and out effect. So this is going to be similar to this. Okay, so we have completed the website, added the show more and this one. Now we want to make it responsive. We want to have 3 here, but when we have a mobile size or tablet size, we want to have 2 or 1 column. So what we do here, we added media query. First, we're going to target the tablet size. So we just going to add media query screen, and we're going to set another condition. We just say if the maximum width, for the maximum width less than 768 pixels, do the following, which is we're going to target search result, and we set the width to be, instead of, remember we set the width to be 30% here, search result, but for this size, under this one, we're going to set it to be 45%, which is going to have some of this size. So for the tablet size, we're going to have it like this, but as you can see, they just connected to the wall. We can fix this one. We just add some margin in the right and left for the search results here that is covering all of them. As you can see, the margin was 0 for the left and right. For the left and right is auto, but we can add some padding instead. So we're going to have some padding, for example, 10 pixels. This is going to push it a little bit inside, so we're going to have some space here. Okay. So in the tablet size, we have 2 next to each other. We can add this padding more, like we can make it 20 even. Looks better. So for the size less than that, for the mobile size, so let me copy this one using Alt-Shift-Arrow down, and instead of 768 for this one, we're going to target sizes 480 and less. So instead of 45%, I'm going to add this one to 100%. So for the size of the smaller, like this size, we're going to have 100% of this screen. So I'm going to show you, if you open the dev tools and go here in the mobile and choose, for example, iPhone 12 Pro, you can see in the mobile size, we have only 1 page. We have 1 image. Okay. So now we have 1 image. The other things I want to do for this form, I want the input and search to be on top of each other. So we're going to target that one too. So we're going to target the form, and we change the flex direction to, instead of row, to be column. So they're going to be on top of each other like this, but here they don't have any space. So I'm going to target that search input. I want to add some margin. I want to add some margin bottom of 20 pixels. So we have some space between them. And also we can make this input to be 100% of the screen. So you can just say width to be 100%. See, so 100% is a bit too much. For example, you can just set it to be 85, for example. Okay, now this one looks okay. We have this search. We can make this button to be bigger as well. If you want to work on it, you can work yourself. And looks fine. For the tablet size, let's make this one responsive. So for the mobile, we have like this. For the tablet size, we have 2 next to each other. For the mobile size, we have only 1. And for the big size, we have 3 next to each other. So that was it for styling our project using CSS. In the next section, we're going to create this result dynamically, like the one in this final version. For example, if you here search for a search term, for example, I search for dog, this is going to show me all the dog pictures, and we can click here on show more, and this is going to show more results here. Okay, All right. So in the next section, we're going to work on the functionality of the website using JavaScript. So see you in the next section. All right. In the last section, we have completed the CSS part of the project. In this section, we're going to work on the JavaScript part and add more functionality to the website. We want to search something on this input, but when we press enter or click on this search button, we're going to fetch data from an API, which is called Unsplash API, and we're going to show the result here based on the search term. So Unsplash actually is a free website that gives you some images, but in order to get the API, we need to sign in their website. It's free for demo applications, which needs less than 50 requests per hour. So it is free. So we need to go to unsplash.com and search and get our API key. So let's go to Google and search for Unsplash. In the search result, we need to go to unsplash.com and we need to sign up to the application. I have already created an account. As you can see, my picture here, it's completely free. You can just sign up, and when you sign in, you just click on this hamburger icon on the right side, and here click on the developer/API. So as you can see, they show you how to use their API and how many requests they have, their months, and simple integrations, and etc. Here you just need to go to your apps here in this menu and click on your apps. And as you can see, I have already created 4 apps. Demo apps are free to create and takes no time. But for the production apps, you need to submit your application. They're going to check and review it, and you can get up to 5,000 requests per hour. So here, let's click on the new application. To create a new application, you need to just check everything here, their terms of service, read all of them, and then accept the terms and create your application. I'm just going to call it image search app. Description, anything you can say, you just say this app can search the images from Unsplash API. Okay. We just click on create application, and as you can see, the application is created, and here you can just get your access key. So we need to get this one, the first one, access key, not the second one. So you need to just copy this one and put it inside your JavaScript file. But we haven't created our JavaScript file yet, so we need to go back to Visual Studio Code, and we open the Explorer section, and we can create our JavaScript file by clicking on this new file, and we just can call it anything like app.js, script.js, or I always call it index.js. And before using the JavaScript file, we need to add a script tag inside the HTML file in order to be able to use it. A script tag should be at the end of the body section, because all the page should be loaded first, and then we can have access to the elements inside the JavaScript and manipulate the data or replace some data that we need. So here you just need to add your script tag. So we just write down, for example, SC, and we can click on the second auto suggestion, the one with the src. src is the address of the JavaScript file. And as both files are located at the same directory, you just need to write down index.js here. Now we can just start working on our JavaScript file. First thing first, I want to create a constant called access key. And this is going to be equal to the access key that we have copied. We haven't copied yet. So we go back and we just copy this to clipboard and we paste it here. So now we have our access key. So the next things we need to do is to get the elements we need from the HTML file and bring it here so we can manipulate these elements, or we can have access to them. So what we need to have is we need this form, because when the form is submitted, we want to know and do some things here. So we want to get the elements of the form. The next things we need is this input. We want to know what is inside this input and what keyword is written inside the input. The third things we need to know is this div, because we want to change everything inside this div and add the images that is coming from the API. So we're going to have access to this div as well. And finally, we want to have access to this button, because we want to know when the person is clicking on this button. So it's very simple to have these things. For the form, because the form doesn't have any ID or class, we can have access to this form using a method called query selector. So we can just create a constant here, and we just call it form element, and we just make this one equal to, we need to tap the document because we want to target all the document and check if there is anything called form there. And we can use the method called query selector, and the selector name is form. So I'm gonna put it inside a set of quote, and we just write form here. After that, we want to target that input. The input has the ID of search input. So I'm gonna copy this search input text, and we just create a new constant, and we call it search input element. And this is going to be equal to document, because we want to target all the document. And this time, because we are targeting an ID, we can use a method called get elements by ID. And we just open a set of brackets. And here we just paste the ID that we have copied. The next things we need to get is the search result div. The search result div actually, it's here, and it has a class of search result. In order to get a term, in order to get an element with the class, we can use query selector as well, but instead we can tap to the class name. So we just call this one search results element. And this is going to be equal to document. We want to target the document. And we just say query selector, and this is going to be equal to the ID. But for class, we need to add a dot here because it's a class. We need to select it by adding a dot at the beginning of the name. So we got that element as well. And the final element is the button saying show more. So what was the name of it? So this button has the ID of show more button. So I'm going to copy this, and here we just name this one show more. As you can see, we're using camel case naming convention and show more button. And this is going to be equal to document dot, because it's an ID, we can use get element by ID. And here we just write down the name of the ID, which is show more button. All right. So we have all the elements now. We can just manipulate them or have access to their data. The first things we need to do is to add an event listener to the form. So when the form is submitted, we want to trigger a function. So this form, we're going to add an add event listener method. The method we want to target, we want to, what event we want to listen. We want to listen to event called submit. So when the form is submitted, we want to trigger a function. Let's create a function. So we want to trigger a function, and this function is going to, first thing first, we want to get the event. So this is the things, events happen after the form is submitted. What we want to do is first we prevent the default behavior of the submission. I just want to first show you that this event listener is working. So let's first console log. For example, we just say the form, the term submitted. I think submitted, has 2 T probably. Okay. After, let's go and check. Now, if we open the console using F12 here, and if we write down something and we press search, let's refresh the page first. As you can see, we console log, but we cannot see it because we console log submitted, but because this is refreshing the page, this is not going to stay. So before submission, we're going to stop the default behavior of submission, which is refreshing the page, and we can do events that prevent default to prevent the refreshing the page. Now, if we submit the form, we can see the term submitted inside the browser, inside the console. But instead of submission, we want to search for the image. So we want to create a function called search image, and we want to call this function, or search images. That makes more sense. And let's create this function here. Usually I create the functions after bringing the elements. So this is the best place. We just put all the functions here. So we're going to call the function search images. Okay. So this is going to call this function, and we need to create the function. And the things the function does is just make a request to the API key, and we get the data from the API. But what we need here, we need this term. Whatever we write down here inside this input, we want to have access to that one too. So based on this information inside the input, we want to submit. So we can get this input data, and I just want to call it input data. And this is going to be equal to, first we need to create it and make it an empty. So we just create because this is a variable and this is going to change, we need, instead of constant, we need to create a let. Let is just a variable that can have multiple change inside after. For example, we just write first is empty and then it gets the value here. But constant, the value of constant cannot be changed through your code. So now we have this one, we just call it input data. First, we set it to be an empty string. Okay. And here we just want to get the data from the search input element dot value. So we want to get the value inside this input. So let's console log and see if we can get it. So now we console log input data. Now let's refresh the page. Okay. So we are getting an error, but I don't think it's related to us because these images we are getting is not available. Oh, sorry. I think I'm offline. Let me connect to the internet first. All right. So I've connected to the internet. Now let's refresh the page. Now we can see that we don't have any error. This error actually is not related to the application. I have some extension that makes these errors not related to us. And here now, for example, I search something like nice. When I press enter, you see the term nice here logged inside the console. Let's search for something else. For example, dog. We can see dog. So now we have access to the input, and now we can just request to the API and get the results related to that search term. So the URL that we use for the API is going to be dynamic because we want to have a different value for it, and also we want to pass this access key as well. So we're going to create a constant and we call it URL, and this is going to be dynamic, so we need to add backticks instead of the quote. This is a quote, this is a backtick. So for using a dynamic URL, you need to have backticks, which is located on top of the tab key inside the keyword. So here we just write down the URL, which is HTTPS. You need to add a clone to /api.unsplash.com/search/photos. And then we add a question mark because we want to have our first query. The query we want to use is page because we want to get the first page first, and then when we click on show more, we want to have the second page, third page. So this is going to be variable as well. So we're going to use $sign and set of curly braces to have the variable page. But page, we haven't defined it yet. So here I'm going to just create another variable called page, which is going to be equal to 1 first. and then we're going to increase it when we click on show more button. So after page, let's add our next parameter by adding an and sign. So first you add question mark. After that, you just need to add ampersand, sorry, and sign or whatever we call it. And then this is going to be query. The next one is query. And this is going to be equal to, this is dynamic as well. And whatever we have here, this input data we put here, this is our query. It can be dog, cat, or anything you search. And after that, we have the access key, which we're going to call it client underline ID. So these are very important, actually, the same things you write down, because if you write down something else, it doesn't work. This is the way you ask for the API, and this is going to be equal to the access key that we have got from the, we copy it and put it here. We got it from the Unsplash API. So 3 variables we have here, the page, the input data, and access key. So we're going to request for the page 1 first, and then by pressing on show more, we're going to increase this page. I'm going to show you how to do it. And now we got the URL. So let me console log the URL. You see that we are doing it correctly or not. So URL, let's check the browser. Now, for example, if you search for dog and click on search or press enter, we get this URL, which is api.unsplash.com/search/photo page 1. Query is dog, and the client ID is this one, is our access key. And if you click on here, this is going to gives us the data based on the search term dog. And if you don't see it like this, you need to install an extension on Chrome called JSON formatter. So install this one to see it like that. And you probably, if you don't have that extension, you see it like this. Okay, this is going to parse it. As you can see, we get the total result, which is 10,000. We have 10,000 pages, and for the result, we get the first 10. Okay, the first 10 we get, each of them has an ID. So let me close this. Each of them has an ID, created, add, width, height, color, blur, and we have the URL. So if you check the first one, for example, if you click here, you see the dog's picture. You can have a full one, regular, a small size. So this is going to be a smaller size. So if you want to make an application, for example, you need only the thumbnail. You just get the thumb, so which is the small one. And also very small. I think it's this one. That's a different format. All right. So, and also we have the links. So when we click on the link, you go to this page related to this image. All right. So for the result, you get 10 items, as you can see here. I mean, I cannot zoom it here, but let me show. No, I cannot zoom it here. So you can have the 10 items here. So we need to show these 10 items inside our application. But the things we get here is not, we just get we need to now fetch the data to get it. Now I just paste it inside the URL. The browser actually fetch the data for us and convert it to JSON and show it for us. What we do here, we want to just do this process in our application. We need to get the response. So we just write down response equal to, we need to add a wait here. A wait is going to wait until the result comes from the API and then goes to the next line of the code. So we're going to use a method called fetch, and we want to fetch this URL. And as we are using a wait, as you can see, we are getting an error because when you are using await, you need to change the function to asynchronous. So what the await does, when you reach the code reach to this line and until the result comes, wait and doesn't go to the next line. So this is going to prevent an error happening inside our application. Then we need to parse it and convert the data to a JSON file. So we need to create another constant and we call it data, which is going to be equal to response dot, and we convert it to JSON by a method from the JavaScript using JSON. So now we can simply console log this. So we just log this data. So now if we come back our application and search for example, dog, we get the first, as you can see, we got the URL and we got back the promise actually. Oh, sorry, we need to add a await here as well because this one takes time to do it. If you don't add a await here, you don't get the result, you just get the promise. So now let's try again. We just do dog and now it gives us the result. We want the result with the 10 items. Each of them is a different image with the URL, color, and everything else. So we have the description here, we have the height, we have all the information we need to fill these cards. Okay, so it was successful. So now what we do here, first we just check if the number of page is equal to 1. We want to set whatever inside the search results element. We want to make this one inside this, whatever the HTML is, we want to make it empty. So we just write down, for example, the dog. We're going to make this one empty. First, we want to make it empty, but based on the result, we want to fill it again if the page is equal to 1. And why we want to set it to 1? Because first someone search, we want to see the first result. And then when we press on the show more button, we want to see the next one. And here too, we want to set the page to be 1 when we submit the form. So when we submit the form, we want to set the page to be 1, and then we want to get the results. So after this, so as I mentioned, we got the data, but the 10 data there is inside the something called results. So we're gonna create another variable constant called results, and this is going to be equal to data.results, which is an array of 10 results. So if we now console log results, we should just get these 10 items. So I'm gonna open the console using F12. If you, for example, search for cat, we're going to get only the 10 results, not the extra data. Okay. And also we can see this show button. We don't want to see this show more button first when we come to the website, but when we search and see the first result, we want to see it. So what we do, we go to style.css, and this button, show more button, here we style it. First we set the display to none. Okay. Now we don't see the button, but in the, where is it? Inside the index.js, we create a statement, and we just say if the page number is greater than 0, greater than 1. Sorry, the first result comes if the page is this greater than 1. We want to see the show more button. So let's see. So we just get we just say show more button dot style. We want to change it a style dot display. We want to set this one to block instead. So let's see. So first we shouldn't see the show more button, but when we actually get the result and show it, we want to increase the number of this page. But now it's imagine that it's just less. Okay. So now we want to manipulate this div based on this result. So let's delete this console log. So let's do it now. We want to create a div. So we're going to create a div and we call it image wrapper. And this is going to be equal to document dot. We want to create an element using create element method. And the element we want to create is a div. Okay. This div is going to have the search result. This one should have 2 P's. Okay. So we want to create this div, the div with the class of result, because we want to finally delete all these things and create it by JavaScript. So we're going to create a div with a class of search results. So first we have this div, and we create this div, and then we're going to add a class list, and the class list is going to have the name search dash result. So when we create this one and add this class name, we want to add it to our this search results element. Okay. So when we have created, we want to create an image inside it. So we're going to create another constant and we call it image. And this is going to be equal to document dot create element again. And this element is going to be an image. This image has the src, which is the address of the image, src, which is going to be that one that we get from the result. But here we get the 10 results. We cannot set the image src to 10. We need to set it to each one. So we need to loop through these results using a method called map. We just map through this result and we get each result singular. And this is going to, and then we need to do all these things inside here. So we're going to create a div here. We're going to add the class list of search result to this div. And then we're going to create an image. The src is going to be result dot urls dot, we want to get the small image. So we just write down a small. If you remember, we console log, it has many like aspect ratios, like a raw, a big, a small. We get the small one, and then the image alternative text is going to be result dot alt underline description. Okay, and so we created the image. We created first a div, so this div search result, and then we have created the image. Now we want to create this anchor tag. So the anchor tag, we want to call it, for example, I just create a constant and just call it image link. And this is going to be equal to document. We want to create this one. So we just use document dot create element. And the element we want to create is anchor tag. We just write A here. So for this one, we're going to have the href target and text content. So we change its href first, and this is going to be equal to result dot links, as I'm showing you before, the links, and inside it we have HTML. Then we have image link target, as we want to open it in a new window, so we have to set the target to underline blank, which is going to open it inside a new page. And finally, we have the image link dot text content, which is the content inside the anchor tag, and which is going to be equal to result. We can use this alt description, but you can use something else as well. So let me console log and check again. Let me console log the results. So let's search something, for example, dog. So each of them, now we are console logging each result. They have alt description we can use. That is one way, but they have a description too. Black pug with the greatest one, and this one is Toshi wearing a snake. The description is actually more beautiful. So the next one, alt is this, but actually the alt description makes more sense than the description. This one, for example, say Happy Women's Day. It's not related to dog at all. Okay, the next one, yeah. And the description is not related to the image. So let's, instead of the description, we're going to have this image link dot text content, and we set it to be equal to this alternative description, which is inside result dot alternative description. Okay, now we have created three things: the wrap, image, and image link. Now we want to just put them. Now we have just created them. Now we want to append them to the existing one. So the image, this div that we have created, image wrapper, we want to put the image and the image link inside that. So we're going to say dot append child. We want to first append the image, and then we want to, let's copy this one, and then we want to append the image link as well. So we're going to append these two. It means add them inside this div, this image and anchor tag. Like here, we have image and anchor tag inside this div. So we have to append these two inside this div. And then we're going to append this image wrapper inside the upper one. So we want to append this div inside the search results. we have the search result. We have imported the search result here, and it's called search results element. So we just say search results element, and we want to append a child to it, which is image wrapper, this one. Now we should see the results. For example, if we search for dog, as you can see, all the images and the description is added very fast to here. For example, we just search for cat, we see the cat. Okay, so that was so simple. So we have created this image, the link. We have created a div. We put the image and the link inside a div, and then we put this div, all this div inside another div called search results. Okay, so that was for this one. Now, after this one, we wanted to add a page number. So we want to increase the page number 1. So the page number first is 1, and then we want to increase it to 2 here. So now, if we search for dog, the page number is going to be 2 after that. So let's refresh the page. For example, cat, but we don't see this button again. So let me see. We haven't saved this one yet. So if we search for dog now we should see the show more button, but we cannot see it yet. Let's console log this page. We check the number here. So let's search again for dog, and we check the console using F12. As you can see, the page number is 2 actually now. If we refresh the page, and then we just search for cat, this is 2, but we have an error. The search images, the block is not defined. Okay, so that's a problem. We need to put this block inside the, we make it a string actually, because this is not a variable. Now, if we search again for cat, the page is 2, and then we can see the show more button as well. So that is working, but we want to have the functionality add the functionality to this show more button. So here at the end, when we have added the add event listener to the form, we want to add the event listener to the button. So we just say show more button. This show more button here that we have, let's call this one show more button element actually. And then we just say show more button element dot add event listener, and the event we want to listen to it is click actually, not submit. So when we click on this button, we want to trigger a function, and this function is just going to call the search images function that we have created at the top. And when we call this one, we're gonna actually call this function again, and we're gonna actually because the page is now 2, we're not gonna clean this one, so we're gonna add the data to it. And here actually we need to change the show more button to show more button element, so in order to it to work. Okay, so let's test this one. Now we just search for dog, we get the dog, the page is 2 here inside the console. When we click on show more, we get more results, and the page number is 3. Click more, we get more results with the page number is 4, and so on. We can just, for I think 1,000 times we can click on show more. So we can just limit it as well here. We just say page more than 1 and less than 1,000. We can just, if you want, you can fix this one too, but I'm not sure someone gonna click on this 1,000 times. Okay, so let's a little bit clean this one. Let's delete some console log that we have. Let's delete this console log URL. Let's delete this console log page. And inside the HTML, we're gonna delete everything inside the search result, or we just, for your reference, I'm gonna just keep them and just make them comment using Ctrl//. Now the page is completely empty when we come to first time. And when we search something, for example, cat, dog, or nice, we get the results, and we have the show more. You can see here, right? So that was it for creating our image search app based on the Unsplash API. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things. So see you in the next project.